Here you're looking at the behind the scenes setup of my most recent LEGO project, this fully immersive LEGO scene. I built this as a way to showcase the speeder, which is an entry to a contest on Flickr. I thought it'd be cool to show you some of the tricks I did to build this scene. I was on a bit of a time crunch when I did it as the deadline was winding down. I thought I'd just give you a fun behind the scenes view of this setup. To ensure accessibility to the build, I laid down the small outline for how I wanted it to go. The boxes sit here because they were a means to get the build higher. It's just how it worked out with getting the correct dimensions and angle of view. Once I'd figured out what angle I wanted, I put down these little pieces of tape, which shows me where the box needs to be slid in, and then the build put on top of that. Now once I have the build there, there's a few slight adjustments I do when I can look through the camera lens and see exactly how it lines up, but this was a great way to ensure I could get accessibility to the build as well as achieve the same angle in the photo each time. What makes forced perspective so neat is the fact that it just has to look good from one angle. When I was deciding to do this backdrop for the speeder, I only had about an afternoon into night's worth of time to build. Now, one thing I did add in the end result of the photo was motion blur. Now, motion blur allowed me to not have to worry as much about the background detail, such as this building here. It's kind of weird looking if you really just look at it. It's pretty basic. The door doesn't even have a means of getting in, it's just a wall of bricks. But since it had motion blur added onto it, I really only had to just build something pretty basic because it was just there to give structure to the blurified background. Similarly, these pieces on the back were to give structure to the wall. Now, this was pretty neat. I had to give it a half stud offset from the wall itself, so I used 2 bricks with a stud on the side to give it that offset because of this piece right here. I couldn't have it butt up right against it. And then it was kind of funny to achieve this strange walkway that appears to be broken. I just put a little clip on what would actually be a pillar if this was a realistic build or full scene, but since you couldn't actually see that, I just stuck a clip on and gave it this slight angle. This piece of machinery was pretty cool. I had this idea pretty early on. It's just using the engines from various Jedi Starfighters and predominantly other Star Wars sets and putting them back to back to create these tube structures. It got, I think, a little hidden in the end photo, so it's cool to come back and show off how it was made. These here are my go-tos when it comes to building futuristic crates or something to put in the background to add detail to a build. They're the inner well of tires. I've seen them also used just like this in official LEGO sets as engines, but they're pretty perfect because with a simple dish added on top, you get this great container looking thing that fits perfectly into the backdrop. You can also stack them using some thinner versions to put them together and create more grooves. To give the ground some sort of interest, I just kind of did a small spew of random pieces at the end. These are the little shooter parts of the Star Wars stud shooter pieces. I just had these in a bag unclipped and I decided to throw a few on the build because of their unique shaping and configuration. I also did a small dumping of these little flat silver 1x1 round pieces just because they were a break from the basic colors and added some metallic, even though it was pretty blurred and you couldn't even tell in the final version. Looking at the road under it, you see to create some sort of interest with the road but still keep it simple, as I was on a time crunch, I just used an offsetting plate design using normal plates, then jumper plates, normal plates, back and forth all the way to the end to create small grooves just to add some sort of unique feeling to it. To achieve some interest with the sidewalk here, I used Technic beams on their sides like so in dark bluish gray in a few different sizes that I put in various configurations. The thing about them is they seamlessly fit in sideways like this with plates because they're the exact same width, and I think did some cool stuff to the sidewalk. Put a good bit of detail into this wall on the lower side where it would mostly be seen in the video. I also added in some little paint splatters, graffiti, with the bright light orange and yellowish green plates that I had around. I had also added in some dark red, and I think I tried another color as well, but it became too congested and there was too much, so I opted out and just went back with the 2 simple colors. If I'd had all the time, I probably would have tried some cooler designs, but being on the time crunch I was at, I just kind of added in plates in a few different areas just to give it some color and a little extra detail in the background. Now, one thing I'd like to note in relation to building forced perspectives is you always want to cover up the light from behind. I just built this little simple backdrop here and set it up against it so that no light would filter through the small cracks in the bricks, mainly caused by the 1x1 studs and such. The same rule applies really for all builds. You don't really want light filtering through cracks if you have them, but especially in like these first perspectives where there's such an emphasis on the photography. The speeder here was obviously the star of the show. I'd had this thing built before the contest even started. It was just something I kind of did on a whim as I had no other project to sink my time into. But I decided last minute, with a little over 24 hours to go, to use it as an entry. So I decided to give it a bit of a paint job with these stickers. These came from the exclusive Rocket Raccoon polybag from the first Guardians of the Galaxy line. And I cut out some of the excess sticker sheet here to give the white wrappings around the engines. Now these peel up a bit. If you kind of wait and see, they'll peel up eventually. I don't know if that's just because it's a cylinder, so it's harder to stick, or if they're just not as good quality as these, but kind of had to stick those down right before I took the picture so it wouldn't peel up and mess it all up. Now I'm really happy with how the speeder turned out. It's got a great greebly design all the way around. It was completely based off of the three-wheeler base almost, without any of the wheels or front. I used it as a basis to build a ton of little pieces off to create all this neat greebly areas. But it was really the stickers that took it to the next level. I must say, for my first real speeder bike, I'm very pleased with this one. Now, my biggest complaint with the thing is it didn't have handles. Kind of ran out of time before the contest ended to add handles, but if I had had more time, it would have been the top of the list of things to add to it. But in all, definitely a speeder I am proud of. And finally, how I edited out the speeder bike stand is I had it set in using the stand you've seen this whole time, just with the cruddy dark red and medium lavender, and I had it at the correct angle I wanted from the camera lens. So I would take the picture of the speeder in its correct formation on the backdrop, pull it off, set a tile where it needed to go, and then take another picture without the speeder. Then once I got to editing, I just had to edit around the speeder and make it its own layer that I could then put over the backdrop and edit them separately and together. It really was a lot of fun to edit. It was probably one of my most successful edits I've done, and I'm looking forward to doing more things like this in the future. Big thanks to you guys for watching this video. I hope you learned something new and I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, comment below with what you think of this build, and stay tuned for new videos which are headed your way.